Man, I'm tired of this shit.
Dude, I was listening to that. Leave it alone.
This is absolute trash.
I don't care. Driver picks the station. Shotgun shuts his cake hole.
Passenger gets first dibs on everything. I have my finger on the button.
You know what? You want to fight about it?
Yeah.
Okay,
fuck
fine.
you.
Hey,
Fuck you.
leave it alone.
No.
It's mine.
Turn your trash off. Now look what you did.
Going. All right, cool. Welcome, everybody, to the Dissonant Harmonics podcast. My name is Frasier.
And for $1, I'll still be Josh Fitzgerald.
I'm not paying you anything to still be Josh Fitzgerald. You have to be Josh Fitzgerald.
Well, good news, folks. The Patreon's coming out, and if you pay me $1, I'll still stay me.
Our Patreon is strictly just to make Josh still be Josh.
If not, you're going to get really bad Danny DeVito impersonations.
Oh, no. Please don't do that.
For
Please.
$2, I'll do that.
Think of the children.
The children can pay me $3 to stop.
Oh, please don't. Anyway, holy moly, we went off that. I don't know what happened there. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, but I'm kind of sorry.
I'm not sorry. I'm never sorry.
Welcome back. We have a new episode.
We have a new episode, and we hopefully aren't having any audio issues.
No. Yeah, so we apologize. Again, we have some issues with, we're trying a new processing thing on Josh's end.
I don't apologize. My computer sucks.
Yeah, there's something about, so for, again, those of you at home that don't know, that don't know anything about audio recording, the reason why you're hearing random skipping or looping in the middle of some of the last 2 or 3 episodes, when your computer gets bogged down and literally can't transfer your voice into the recording software program, it just basically starts looping because it's frozen while your computer's frozen, and it starts just kind of re-looping the audio that it already knows is in there until it can catch back up. So we missed those. Sorry. Hopefully that didn't ruin your listening experience, but after listening to them again, we also know that you didn't miss anything. You heard the whole episode still in its entirety, and I am doing a better job of going back and editing and double checking. So this hasn't been a problem until now. So now I will be extra diligent on the editing stuff. Okay. Well,
I won't help with that, but I am using a different program to record my voice.
Yeah, I'm the editor in chief, and Josh is the disperser in chief, and our distribution in chief. And then we both split social media duties.
Just call me Chief.
And with that, you can start with the news because we have some lower level, lesser news. And then we have some, I don't know what's going on, but the music world has decided that 2024, the end of 2024, is the time to just drop nuclear bombs on us. So we're going to just roll with them.
At least roll over until it feels good.
Right. All right, so what do you got?
Almost every band is pulling off of Shell Shock 2's music festival. So last week or the week before, it was confirmed that Evergreen Terrace was going to be pulling off of not System Shock. That'd be fucking great. Shell Shock 2 Festival, which is a festival that puts on bands and donates proceeds to PTSD research, goes towards things for troops, all that good stuff, which is very good, and I do agree with what they do. But Evergreen Terrace and now Southpaw, Let Me Bleed, and American Hollow have decided that while they agree with the message, they don't agree with the special guest that was announced that will be showing up there. Do I get 3 guesses on who it is? It's not Jim Carrey. That'd be great.
That'd be funny.
Literally. No, Kyle Rittenhouse has been announced as a special guest, and most of these bands do not agree with having Kyle Rittenhouse show up at this festival. So these bands have pulled off for that reason. And we all remember Kyle Rittenhouse, the guy that illegally bought a gun to go out and shoot people in self-defense during the riots.
He didn't buy a gun. We'll get into that later. No politics. No politics.
He got a gun, and he shot people.
Yeah, so the nice thing is, and here's the other thing, which I will give them total props for. I have the statement here Hold on. I have it right here. Okay. This is from Evergreen Terrace. Evergreen Terrace has always supported and continues to support blah, 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 blah. The point we're getting to is where they write, even after they offered to pull Kyle from the event, we discovered several associated entities that we simply do not agree with. We don't know what those are or why.
No.
As
the main one was Kyle Rittenhouse, and then further from there.
Well, but they offered to pull Kyle from the event, and then they continued to discover other entities that they didn't want to be associated with. And
fair enough.
They did say, as advocates for free speech, we are respectfully canceling the Shell Shock Festival. We will personally be contributing to veterans charity and urge you to do the same. The promoters have been nothing less than understanding. So it sounds like they very much didn't just fuck you guys, we're leaving, which I totally give them props for. They're like, hey, this person we have a specific problem with. Maybe they don't even have a problem with what Kyle did or was accused of doing. Maybe they just have a problem with, hey, he's going to be there and that's going to give us a lot of flack. Can we not? And then the promoters were like, yeah, sure. No, we'll pull Kyle from the event because we'd rather have you guys. And even after that, it sounds like they did this the very right way. They didn't do this like drama queens. They didn't just drop off and say, screw you guys, and make a long social media post.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
They talked to all the promoters about it. They worked everything out, and then they put out a social media post explaining their side, and they didn't bash anybody, which I totally have to. And they didn't even bash Kyle. They're just like, hey,
no.
we don't agree with him or him being there. Like I said, for all we know, they might just not want him there just because it'll make the band look bad to half the country. So they're like, hey, we'd rather not be a part of this at this point. It's just too much. Let's just call it a day. And it sounds like everyone's been totally cool about it, which is the part that I was like, hey, finally a band that's being mature.
Finally, we can all play together nice.
Right, well, and this is what I was saying, I think last episode of the episode before. Businessman off stage, rock star only on stage. This is what I want to see. Being mature, giving, talking with the promoters, talking with venues, getting all the information out there, and being truthful and calm and collected about it without having to do any mudslinging.
No, and I agree. And these bands aren't huge Metallica level bands. I mean, Evergreen Terrace has been around for a while, so I mean, it's not like, we're gonna have all these people harassing this band and going after them on social media about backing out. I mean, you're gonna have people that are gonna do it no matter what, but it's not like, Slayer's not pulling out of something.
Right, and I was going to say that not to be rude at all. This must be a really tiny festival somewhere because I've never even heard of any of these bands.
Evergreen Terrace has been around for a minute. They're a pretty good band.
Yeah, I mean, been around, yeah, but they're obviously on the lower level of popularity. So,
El Nino.
This definitely sounds like it was just a charity event. It says it's a festival because of the style, but it's a cool little charity event for all the right reasons. Nickelback wasn't there. I'm sorry. And then
I heard that double bass intro right as you said that.
Anyway, okay, what's next? Actually, I'll take this next one. We wanted to go back over something that we forgot to mention. And Josh will give you the quick story about Perry Farrell and the bassist.
Perry Farrell fucking sucks, and he always has fucking sucked.
Give him the story from Porno for Pyros, and then I will add an extra tidbit of information that we forgot to mention last time.
So, and the ever-enlightening information that Perry Farrell is still a dick and always has been, now it's being confirmed not only from within Jane's Addiction, from within the stage crew of Jane's Addiction, but now we have the bass player from his other band, Porno for Pyros, which is another band that we forgot to bring up that Perry Farrell has been in and has been an asshole in. But their Porno for Pyros' bass player, I forgot to write down his name. I'm sorry. He probably doesn't listen anyway. Has gone on to say that he has worked with difficult singers in the past, but none take the cake as Perry Farrell. And has listed off examples saying that he's the kind of guy that will give you a compliment, but his actions will turn around and say otherwise known as my actions of swinging and trying to punch Dave Navarro on stage kind of thing.
Right. The thing we forgot to mention, and this might give more context to people, is to allude to Perry Farrell being a bit of a jerk and I forgot specifically. There was specifically a money thing we had brought up about Jane's addiction. Someone will have to go back 2 episodes and remind us. But one thing that I forgot to mention is that during the recording of their first album, when they went to go split the royalties, obviously, you know, Dave Navarro wrote all the music. The band members wrote all the music, right?
Right.
But when it came time to split the royalties, for those of you who don't know, Perry Farrell insisted and then got 50% of the royalties for everything because he wrote all the lyrics. So he thought that since he wrote all the lyrics, he should get 50%. And then all the other band members that wrote all of the music without him, which is true, he did not help write the music, should be only have to split 50% between the 4 of them. So that's an instance where I go, yeah, you wrote the vocal melodies and the lyrics, but that's only a quarter of the song. You still have a bassist, guitarist, and drummer that actually wrote the song for you to put lyrics on, and you got to approve. So this is the kind of person Perry Farrell has always been, that he thinks he should have way more than his share just because he writes lyrics and sings. And I don't know why. Maybe they were just young and dumb at the time, but I don't know why Dave Navarro and crew agreed to that, but they did. So there's that. Next thing was about
Perry Farrell still fucking sucks.
Yes. Josh is adamant about that one.
I'm adamant. I've never liked Perry Farrell. He's always been a pretentious douchebag to me.
To you? Directly to you?
Exactly to me. He's my uncle. I just haven't told you yet.
Oh, okay. That's unfortunate. Anyway, what'd you have about Coal Chamber?
Coal Chamber fucking sucks.
Oh, Jesus. This is going to be the every person we bring up fucking sucks podcast.
This is Frasier has an alternate persona for me, and that is Old Man Josh. And Old Man Josh hates everything and hates change.
And also is stubborn and won't admit when he's wrong, even if he's wrong, because he's stubborn and doesn't want to admit it.
I'm not wrong. You're just not right enough.
So what happened with Coal Chamber, dear?
Okay, so Coal Chamber pulled out of an entire tour a few weeks back talking about Dez Fafara, Dez, the singer of Coal Chamber and Devil Driver, pulled off of their last tour due to Dez's ongoing health issues. His ongoing health issues, nobody... Well, see, here's the thing. Nobody knows what his health issues are.
Right.
He will not say what his health issues are. He says he doesn't know what they are. But they pulled off their last tour due to the fact that he posted a picture of him being loaded up into an ambulance and taken away. And just went on that he had passed out at his home, going down the stairs. His wife performed CPR and brought him back. They got him on there, sent him away. So their guitar player in this meantime also quit the band, stating that he did not want to be part of Dez's part-time band in lieu of trying to find a full-time gig and trying to make money to survive, basically.
Right.
He went on to say that he had quit the band and told every band member except Dez because he knew that Dez would blow a gasket and would basically do everything he could to keep him in the band because need a guitar player for these things. But this guy wants money. He wants to be able to perform every single night for weeks on end and do what the musicians do and play with the other ones. And actually play with a band that actually is wanting to be a full-time band. So enter Dez, who is telling everybody that he's having all these health issues. Posted the picture of him loaded up in an ambulance being taken away. According to Dez, all this is going on and that the doctors aren't doing what they can to tell him what's wrong, and that basically being brought into the ER did not constitute him getting a CT scan that he has claimed that these people want, or that he's telling these doctors to do, and they just won't do it.
Right.
So now that we've gone on to Aftershock Festival coming up, Coal Chamber was issued to play on that festival and are now dropping out due to Dez's ongoing health issues. And arguably, a better band to replace them has been announced as Dope.
Oh, that'd be good.
Yeah, Dope, I feel like, is like Coal Chamber had their day. I feel like Devil Driver was the better version of what Coal Chamber left off on.
Right.
And then Devil Driver went and made like a country album or like a country inspired metal covers of country song albums. Nobody liked it. And now Dez says, oh, well, shit, now I need money. What's a good one? Oh, yeah, everybody still likes Loco by Coal Chamber.
Right.
Which I thought was Korn, but apparently it's not Korn.
Right.
So it sounds like to me that Coal Chamber sounds like they're kind of on the downward spiral to just being done.
Right.
Which I'm not going to cry over.
No. But something we can celebrate. I sent
Celebrate.
Josh this. Here's the nuclear bomb we've all been waiting for. Oasis is coming to tour the U.S. for 5 dates. I'm kidding, that's not the nuclear
yeah, Wonderwall.
bomb. That's not even the big news. For those of you that
Anyway,
don't know,
here's Wonderwall.
Yeah. 3 Days Grace, the greatest band of all time, has announced that Adam Gontier is coming back to the band to some degree or another. They are keeping Matt Walsh at the same time, who is
the current singer.
Current singer and former singer of My Darkest Days.
Get rid of Matt.
For those of you that don't know, last year they got together and Adam came out and sang a couple songs, including
in
Never
Nashville,
Too Late,
actually, which is like
in Nashville.
like 3 hours away from where I live.
And they came out and sang Never Too Late and Riot, and I think maybe one more, but I'm not sure which one. And then they put out this post. First they put out a post of an audio file of Adam just calling Brad.
A voicemail. It was a voicemail, I believe.
Calling Brad Walst, the bassist, saying, "Hey man, I'm on my way to the studio. I'm running a little bit behind, but I'm on my way. Catch you in a minute," basically. So this is the post they put out. After performing together in Nashville around this time last year and spending time in the studio since, we're excited to announce the official return of Adam Gontier to vocals in 3 Days Grace. Here's the big kicker, with Matt Walsh remaining as lead vocalist as well. The other two
fuck
things
Matt,
are just...
kick him out.
No, don't fuck Matt. Stop it.
I'm not going to. Maybe that's why he won't leave.
So people are kind of speculating, and Josh and I were going back and forth as to why Matt would remain, quote, the lead vocalist. First off, Saint Asonia still exists. And to back that up, by the way, back in September 13th, Saint Asonia themselves said, "Hey everyone, Saint Asonia here. Due to personal matters, we regret to announce that we'll be canceling our November dates for Theory of a Dead Man tour. This year has been a great experience in touring and playing with the best fans we could. Blah, 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 blah. We will be back next year, so keep your eyes out for any announcements in the coming months."
Well, plus Mushok is still part of Stained too.
Yep. So fast forward like 3 weeks, and here we are, 3 Days Grace, saying that they're bringing Matt back, and then also Saint Asonia after the 3 Days Grace announcement, Saint Asonia posted a picture of everyone on stage that just simply said, "Thank you for all your love and support. We will be back, ... What this tells me is Stained is back on top again. They're touring with Breaking Benjamin. I'm actually going to go see them Tuesday, so next week we might have a show review. I'll have a little bit of a show review. I'm kind of excited to review Daughtry and the opening band Lakeview. We'll talk about them later. So Stain's back on top of the world. Mike's busy with that. And then you have 3 Days Grace coming back. So the reason I think, in my opinion, that Adam is not being quote-unquote the lead vocalist and they're not getting rid of Matt is because obviously Adam still loves Saint Asonia. It's the heavier, better version of 3 Days Grace, in my opinion.
Right.
He's going to continue doing that. But right now the schedules aren't lining up. So Adam's going to come, do a few songs. Him and Matt are going to go back and forth. They're going to play around on stage. My assumption is, for those of you that have ever seen 3 Days Grace live, 3 Days Grace travels with not just the band members, but then 1 or 2 extra touring members. There's a guy that plays guitar and keyboard and does backup vocals on stage, and I think they have 1 other guy on top of that.
And Adam plays guitar.
Correct, and that's what I was getting at. Adam's probably going to be on stage the entire show singing backup vocals for songs he doesn't sing, and Matt and him will switch up lead and backup vocals. And then Adam's just going to be playing guitar and adding that second guitar so they can get rid of the other touring member, is my thought process. It's a smarter business decision. The core band members make the money. You don't pay touring musicians a whole hell of a lot anyway compared to the rest of the band.
And plus, you're going to get a lot more people that are going to be wanting to go spend the money to go see them, knowing that Adam is going to be performing the old hits and has his voice doing it instead of Matt trying to play it his way.
Correct. I think this is a really smart, logical, good way to go about this. I know people might be pissed, Josh, that Matt is still in the band at all.
I'm not overly pissed about it. My original thought process when you sent this to me was, how is this going to work with recording a new album?
That is how I'm curious. Are they, because again, obviously the songs that one person leads on, the other person will do background vocals. They did also say in their post that we're kind of excited to try this new thing that no one else in rock is doing, which isn't having two vocals. That's been a thing for a while. Alice in Chains, you know. But having two lead vocalists who are very well established.
Right.
If that makes sense. Doing it the way they're doing it hasn't been done before, where you have two very well beloved lead singers.
You're not having Journey going back out and having Steve Perry and the other guy singing in the band.
Right. Yeah, you're not having William Duvall and Lane Staley on stage.
Well, you can't. Lane Staley's dead unless you're going to wheel him out in his coffin.
You get what I mean. But you've never done this before, where the original lead singer and the new singer are going to share vocal duties. You know, in the live sense, it totally makes sense on how they would pull that off. Adam sings the stuff he's always sang. Matt sings the stuff he's always sang. They'll do background vocals. But in the studio, it's a whole different ballgame. Are you going to have Matt sing a whole song on his own? Are they going to do the metalcore thing where you switch between singers during the song? One person holds
The only
up the
thing that
chorus?
I can even like compare it to is like trying to think of if Cannibal Corpse would ever do an album with both Corpse Grinder and Chris Barnes, because they're both established. They are both, you know, they both had hit albums with that band. Mm-hmm. But doing that live, it's like, if doing that live makes total sense. You can meld voices together pretty well on harmonies, on especially 3 Days Grace.
And switching off. Like, and again, they have a full catalog they can use with Adam and a full catalog they can use with Matt. But in the studio...
Say Adam has, I think, about 4 albums with him. I think Matt does too.
5.
5 with Adam or 5 with Matt?
5 with... No, it is 4, because it was...
It's 4 with Adam, because Transit of Venus was the last one.
Yeah, and that was 4. I thought, for some reason, I always think Chalk Outline as an album, even though that was a single on Transit of Venus. Yeah, so I'm kind of curious. Are they going to do the metalcore thing where they do like one person does the verses and then the choruses? Or is it going to be like a features album where one person does the first verse, one person takes the chorus, the next person takes the second verse, and then the chorus is still the main singer for that song?
You're probably going to see the albums come out. You're probably going to see this next album come out on streaming services as like 3 Days Grace, Adam Gontier.
No, because that splits royalties. This will all be under 3 Days Grace. I think this
I feel like they'd have to split the royalties with him, because he could just leave to go back to Saint Asonia.
No, but I think he's going to keep Saint Asonia running. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
this is also a great way that they can create music together, and then when Adam picks up in Saint Asonia, hey guys, I'm going to go on tour. Matt, you take over all the vocal duties 100% of the time. I'll be back eventually. You know, that kind of thing. But what I'm saying is, when you list it, you can't list Adam Gontier separately on your Spotify list, because then not only does Adam Gontier get his portion of the credit, he also gets an extra section of the streaming services. He has to be on 3 Days Grace's name, because he can't get money from 3 Days Grace and Adam Gontier. That doubles up his pay. Unless they aren't going to pay him for anything that 3 Days Grace streams, which I don't think they're going to do.
No.
Does that make sense?
I want to say there's been bands that have listed themselves on streaming services like that before, but now that I'm backed into a corner, I can't think of them off the top of my head.
Well, I mean, we had a lot of it happen, and we talked about it back when, like, I'll give you the bad example. When Machine Gun Kelly had Oliver Sykes on there. They didn't list it as Machine Gun Kelly with Oliver Sykes. It said Machine Gun Kelly with Bring Me the Horizon, because they wanted the money to go to the band, not just to Ollie. The only band I have seen doing this recently, and it has nothing to do with royalty, it has to do with exposure, and here's the other thing: Adam Gontier doesn't have a solo platform on streaming services, so it wouldn't do anything. No one would look up Adam Gontier, so it doesn't work that way. Is Johnny Craig's new band, which is called Old Flame. Since Johnny has a solo project and he has Old Flame, which is technically a solo project, but he hires out the musicians, it says Old Flame with Johnny Craig. And they don't split the royalties differently. It's just so that the songs appear on Johnny Craig's profile, solo profile, and on Old Flame's profile. It's just for viewership purposes. It's not that they can split.
Does Adam not have? I thought Adam did have solo music, or at least like solo acoustic versions of some of 3 Days Grace's stuff.
I will look right now, but I don't think he does. Like, he exists as a songwriter on Spotify, but he doesn't have...
Because Tidal will do the same thing, too, with engineering, people on engineers.
The only songs he has on Spotify under his solo name are all of his features on Breaking Benjamin and 1,000 Foot Crutch.
Oh, okay.
So he does not exist as a solo artist in terms of having a profile for a reason. So anyway, the last bit of news, which I keep forgetting to mention, which I thought was kind of funny and lighthearted, so we're going to go for it, is, and also there's some lies behind this, so I think we should go over it.
Hey, you're forgetting mine, too.
Man buys Taylor Swift themed guitar at charity auction and smashes it with a hammer.
Oh, man, this actually segues perfectly if I didn't have the stuff about Richie Blackmore.
Right, and that's why I picked it. So people are kind of going nuts right now. It was a joke. Everybody thinks that this was super serious and mean-spirited. This guy, wherever it wasn't even... a lot of people are like, it was autographed. Turns out it wasn't autographed. There was no autograph. He bought it. It was a cheap collector's item that had artwork of Taylor Swift on it. She didn't draw it. It was just like a picture of Taylor Swift on the guitar.
Yeah, it's like a guitar you can buy at Walmart for Hannah Montana kind of thing.
Right, and they were selling it for $4,000 because it was a one of a kind. It was the artwork was one of a kind and cool. And as a joke, the auctioneer had a hammer, and he goes, "And we have a hammer if you want to smash it," something like that as a joke. Well, the guy came up, bought it for $4,000 so that the charity could make money. It was obvious that he didn't really care about owning it because he grabbed the hammer, not like ripped it out of his hand, but he like grabbed the guitar, looked at the hammer, grabbed the hammer, and then like hit the guitar a few times with the hammer. It was all in good fun. It was all for charity. It didn't have an autograph. This wasn't
and a lot of things to do with these charity events are mostly going to be, so a friend of mine from Washington, he and his family do, excuse me, thank you. Go to these charity events for I forget exactly what. Like 2 of his adopted daughters have a lot of medical issues, so they go to a lot of these charity events for his taekwondo and jiu-jitsu stuff that benefits children with the same kind of disabilities. And they'll just bring out anything. They'll be like, "Who wants to bid $40 on a gallon of milk?" Like, you're not actively trying to spend $40 on that, milk that I can buy for $5. It's $40 going to the charity, and the bonus is you get a carton of milk. And that's what this was doing too, is that we're raising money, but basically, thank you for giving us this charitable donation. Here's a free guitar to do with what you please. And I said this all the time when I was in retail, when people would ask me, "Hey, can I just smash this right in front of you after I buy it?" It's like, once it's yours, like, you can do whatever you want with it. And there's nothing I can do about it except ask you to please quit disrupting my store.
Right. And again, this wasn't the big thing that people are freaking out about.
It wasn't malicious.
This wasn't, well, not only that, but it wasn't, here's the other side. It wasn't a priceless autographed instrument. It was a random guitar they plucked off a wall. They put some cool artwork on, and they sold it to try to make money for a good cause. Right. Everyone calm down. With that segue, let's talk about our topic today.
You forgot about Richie Blackmore.
Oh, okay, fine, hit it.
Some guy posing as Richie Blackmore scammed a terminally ill cancer patient out of $184,000 posing as Richie Blackmore.
Almost makes Johnny Craig look like a good human being. Which, for the record, Johnny Craig's cleaned his act up, and from what I hear, he's doing an amazing job of being a great human being.
How do you know that this isn't Johnny Craig in disguise?
I don't think anybody wants to dress up as Johnny Craig.
Well, because this guy poses Richie Blackmore on Facebook. I mean, I can put my picture as Johnny Craig and just go around talking about how great I am.
I don't think you ever want to be associated with the look that is Johnny Craig.
I don't think anybody wants to be associated with the look that is Richie Blackmore.
That either.
So, yeah, there's going to be charges pressed, but basically this person scammed an old classmate of Richie Blackmore's.
Right.
And, yeah, people suck.
Yep. So on to the topic, which is something we've very quickly hit a few times in the past few weeks, but we wanted to do more in-depth talking about it and where it started and why it exists. And that is artists taking their biggest albums or maybe an album they really enjoy and completely not just like re-releasing it and remastering it, that's a whole different ballgame, but completely re-recording it. The latest version of this has been the Amity Affliction, which they did Let the Ocean Take Me Redux. The first instance of this, which was a big deal and kind of was a nuclear bomb on the record industry, was by Taylor Swift, who completely re-recorded with all the instruments, re-recorded all the vocals, everything of her first album.
And a lot of that, too, was that she had been fighting with producers on these, especially the later albums, about producers and the record label going and telling her how they thought this music should be presented, how it should be going out there, and what's going to essentially the big poppiest hits that are going to make them all money at the sacrifice of not being what she exactly wanted these songs to sound like.
Well, it's actually a little bit bigger than that. You're dead right. You're not wrong. But the big thing that kicked all this off that is the kind of the same case for every single band, including Motionless in White, who just redid Reincarnate, which, again, I didn't think sounded as good, but I understand what they did.
And then everybody complained about him taking out the word bitch.
Right. But the whole reason this started with Taylor Swift is because Taylor Swift's record company owned her first album. And she wasn't making very much money off of it because her record deal at times sucked, and the record company was basically just raking in cash off this album, and that was all the way through COVID. And I think this happened the first time this happened was during COVID.
It was.
So then she turned around and offered to buy the album from them, which they smartly said in a business decision, yeah, no, we make more money off this album. Oh, by the way, one more tidbit of news. Pink Floyd sold their entire catalog, their likeness, and everything to Sony Music for $400 million.
$400 million, yeah. I was going to say, I thought about that, too, when we started talking about today's topic. It was like, ooh, that would be a good one to kind of rope in where we can.
We'll actually cover that topic next week because there's another band that did the same thing, and it's not Bon Jovi. Oh, Bruce Springsteen did the same thing.
Yes.
Well, that'll be our topic next week, is why are artists, especially if you notice they're older artists, selling their likenesses and their entire catalogs. We'll get to that next week. But anyway, record company owns the album. Taylor Swift offers to buy it. Record company says no because they're going to make more money off of it. Taylor Swift finds the loophole in the record company that the record company doesn't want you to know about, which is if the artist
neat hack.
If the artist goes and records an album independently, because she wrote the songs, right? She owns the rights to that music, those melodies, those guitar lines. Those are all owned. The rights to those, the intellectual property, is owned by Taylor Swift.
Right.
The problem is, the album, the collection as a whole, not the intellectual property, but the physical album and the music is owned and only allowed to be distributed and collect royalties by the label. Since Taylor Swift owns the intellectual property, and this is going to be a big deal here in a minute, she can go out, hire a whole crew of musicians, go back in the studio, literally record that album note for note, lyric by lyric, and re-release it under her own independence or her new label, whatever she wants to do, and she gets 100% of the royalties from that new album. And when Taylor Swift did this, it quickly went to the #1 album on Spotify overnight, because not only did the fans back her and decide to only stream this album and stop streaming the old album, which is the same thing, right? It's the same thing with newer production.
Newer production. There's nothing else changed from what I can tell.
It's identical.
You get some of that in the later versions.
Not only did the fans back her and choose to listen to the new album at her behest, but also it sounds a little bit better. So it's a win-win for everybody. So now it went #1 overnight, and now Taylor Swift makes 100% of the royalties off of that album again, even though it's
and
a
the
new
label
album.
doesn't make any money off of it whatsoever. And now they're not making any money off of the old one because nobody's streaming it anymore.
Because nobody's listening to it. Because it sounds exactly the same. Now here's where we get into this problem.
The later ones that she did, I've noticed that there's a difference. I know that I have it was bought for me as a gift, but I actually blast it in my car pretty often. But I forget which album it is. But it is it's 1989. Some of the production and some of the music is different, and I believe she had gone on to say that it's more what she wanted it to be like.
Right.
Like especially Welcome to New York and Blank Space. Like she had went back and kind of changed it and tweaked it a little bit to be more what she originally wanted, which was what pisses me off about the Amity Affliction's new version of Let the Ocean Take Me.
And that brings us to our problem, which is bands nowadays, metalcore bands that have gone, or metal bands, the reason we talk about it, that have decided to do this as well. The problem is they're not doing it in the same way Taylor Swift did, which is make it almost identical so they can win it back.
Yeah.
The Amity Affliction redid Let the Ocean Take Me. And for those of you that haven't heard it, the screams sound more like generic metal screams, like metalcore, beefier metalcore screams. They don't.
And you're
sound
talking
like
about,
Joel's.
and you're talking about the re-release, right?
Yes, the Redux. They don't sound like Joel's vocals at all on the original. They've down-tuned a bunch of the songs because
Joel's voice has improved and has gotten deeper,
but
and down-tuned it, and also with Aaron singing too. Singing too.
They also drop-tuned it because it makes it easier on Aaron to sing, and it also gives it that beefier modern metalcore sound. And they put the modern production in, and they changed a bunch of the production. The reason we don't like this isn't because of principle, is because it sounds like it was rushed. It sounds like they didn't try very hard. Joel's vocals stay in the same pitch the whole time. And
there's only a very few times on that entire album where he does kind of hit the higher notes that he used to, and hits a little bit of the lower. But it's the same problem I had with Fear Factory going back and doing all their latest albums. Like Burton only does mid-range. That's all he does. Right. That's exactly what Joel did on this one. Like the last album had differences in his vocal styles. He was trying a bunch of different stuff on it because they were going with an even heavier sound that they had before. But when you go back to Let the Ocean Take Me, and I think that was 2014 when that album came out.
Yeah.
Metalcore was kind of still in that stage where it's chimey. We're gonna let the vocalist go crazy with highs, mids, and lows to try and show off how much he can do. And Aaron's voice is obviously higher pitched because he was younger. And now this production hits the note where it's that sound that you get from metalcore bands that all you hear is double bass drum. That's it. It's punchy, it's muddy at times, and the guitar and the bass are just machine gunning to the point being so down-tuned that you can't tell what's going on besides just
right.
And like you said, Joel's vocals, like I don't know what's going on with this. I think this is Aaron's swan song at this point.
I'm not that fatalistic about it. But with that being said,
he sounds like he didn't even really want to be there.
Well, no, I don't think so at all. I think what you're hearing, and this is where your opinions and eyes clash. I don't think it sounded like he didn't want to be there at all. I think with the down tuning of the songs, I've noticed this in my vocals. Because a lot of the songs, when I play them live, I'm going to do this quick. I'll try to do this quickly. When I record a lot of the songs, I actually do them in drop B because that's the tuning I like. That's the vocal range I like. But when I play live, I don't have a guitar that goes down that low, so I have to play them a half step up and drop C. When you play a half step lower or a whole step lower, your voice sounds more monotone, just in general. So I don't think he sounded like he phoned it in. I don't at all. I think Joel sounded like he phoned it in.
I think they both did.
But with that being said, I think Aaron just sounds like he's not trying because he's down-tuned and he's singing more monotone and it's in a better space for him. So for us, it sounds like he's bored, when in reality, it's just him singing a half step lower, which makes the song just sound more monotone. I think Aaron's vocals sounded great. I really did. I will fight you on this. He doesn't sound bored. He sounds like he's down-tuned half a step or a full step, depending on the song. And the first thing I noticed,
they use the same tuning on Not Without My Ghosts too.
Well, yeah, they did. But like Death's Hand, Pittsburgh, all down-tuned half a step. Go listen to Death's Hand, just the intro real quick on the old version, and then put on the new version. You can tell immediately it's down-tuned. So he's not, like, on that song, sure. But on the rest of the album, on like Death's Hand or Pittsburgh or Let the Ocean Take Me, where they're down-tuned, anyway, it just does that to your vocals because you're singing lower. But getting back to why people are doing this, Joel came out and even said they specifically did this because Roadrunner cut them a shit deal off the bat, which makes me sad because I used to idolize Roadrunner records.
Oh yeah.
And they made almost no money off of their biggest album. This is Let the Ocean Take Me has always been their biggest album. So they
from a business standpoint too, you could also look at it as saying like, yeah, they kind of fucked them and they're kind of, my public persona or public opinion of them has gone down. But also gotta remember, Amity Affliction before this was just kind of like a band. They weren't huge. They weren't touring the United States really much before that from Australia. So right. Roadrunner was also still kind of taking a chance on this young metalcore band that may or may not go anywhere. Because
absolutely.
They may have the original deal might have been more beneficial to the label, because if this band decides to suck and they decide that they can't tour outside of Australia,
right,
then at least the label's still kind of protecting their interests. I still think labels suck ass, but
right.
It still might have been them protecting themselves.
I understand both sides of it, but there has to be a point, kind of like with Spotify or YouTube, when you get big enough and the record has recouped enough of its money, let the artist have their fair share now. We understand they signed a deal, but there has to be a breaking point. Like, hey, we sold you 300,000 units. You've recouped your money. The rest of it's ours. Something like that. There has to be something that they can do.
Like you can hit a certain step or certain stride in that album to be able to be like, all right, cool. Like you said, we've recouped everything. Now the deal changes to being, okay, let's make this divvied up a little bit more evenly.
Right. Because this album, and keep in mind, this is the 10-year anniversary, right? So this album sounds like they ran into the studio, got this done as quick as they could, and put it out, and it doesn't sound bad, right? Like, the production's good, but there are times where, like, the vocals overlap weird. Like, you could tell they probably should have done a different take on that or something like that. The vocals aren't out of pitch, but, like, you can tell the production sometimes, like, the vocals lap weird or the timing's weird. It's like, you guys should have done another take on that and polished it up a little bit more, because I think they were rushing to get this out and say not only is it a Redux, but it's a 10-year anniversary.
Right, because they went back and did all the merch for it, too.
Right, and so I think they tried to get this out before the end of the year, which they succeeded by 2 months. But it's like, yeah, you should have waited and gotten this done properly and made it sound good. With that also being said, there's other bands that have been doing this that have made it sound great. They're like, or they'll do one-offs, which I prefer. Like, hey, let's just do one single.
Which is what Motionless in White did, because Reincarnate is going on its, I think, 10-year anniversary, too.
Correct. And, again, I don't think it sounds the best. It does sound like his vocals are super raw and not very mixed in or processed very well. That's my opinion. There are a couple times where I think he sounds a little out of breath. But, the difference being that I don't think Motionless in White is doing this because money was the issue.
No, they've gone on and put out, I think, 2 or 3 remixes of some of the songs too, and just said, hey, here's Reincarnated, and just put that out just to say, hey, by the way, it's the 10-year anniversary. We'll play some of these songs live. Here's some electronic remixes of some of the other songs on the album, and hey, here's some new merch that came out for it.
Well, and they also put out the Unstoppable NXT version, which, for those of you who don't know, NXT is like the WWE wrestling thing. And so they had a different version of Unstoppable's lyrics. They changed them to be a little bit more family friendly so they could play it on TV. And they dropped out if you wanted.
Didn't Kane Hill do something with NXT?
Yeah, they played It Follows live. It Follows. But so they and also Motionless in White wrote Rhea Ripley's walk-in music because she used. We all
know that she's just Chris Motionless in disguise.
I think she's Chris Motionless's bigger, buffer sister, personally.
That's fair.
I was showing my wife the other day a photo of her, and then I showed her a photo of Chris Motionless, and she's like, "It's like his older sister." I go, "Yeah, probably."
It's like that meme from The Office where it's just like corporate wants you to find the difference in these two pictures, and it's the same picture.
Right. So yeah, that's the story on Redux's. Oh, that was the other one. Was the Sepultura doing it? Or
Sepultura. Yeah, I feel like a little bit different because it's not like the whole band redoing it. It's the principal songwriters redoing it under a new band name. But the idea is still very similar. It'd be like if Metallica tried to go back and redo, because they've been remastering all their albums. I think they stopped the 90s stuff, but
remember,
it'd be like Metallica needs to go back and re-record Saint Anger. That's the best album. Now I don't care what you say.
Right. I mean, but again, remember, remastering and re-recording are completely different.
Right. No, I'm saying it'd be more like if Metallica re-recorded them instead of remastering them.
Correct.
Because you have them on Elektra, but now they have Blackened, which is a subsidiary of Elektra Records.
Right. The big thing to take home from this, because we do have to start getting wrapped up eventually, we still have album reviews to do. The big thing to take away from this is strictly almost entirely a business decision. All these bands are doing this because somebody somewhere owns the rights to these songs, and every band has realized there's a loophole that they can re-record these albums and put them out again. And the other problem, I think this is going to be a problem with the Amity Affliction, in the days of streaming now that we're in, I don't think a lot of people are going to pick up on the Amity Affliction because their number one song is Let the Ocean Take, or is Pittsburgh on Spotify. So now you have to hope that your fan base, and here's the catch-22. You have to hope the fan base likes the new version
more than the original.
More than the original, because they have to choose to listen to the new version. Now, there's going to be people that are loyalists that will listen to the new version just so the record company doesn't get money. But you also have to make that version good, the new version good, so that people want to listen to it and want to choose it over the old version, which Taylor Swift did beautifully. But no matter what, this is a giant gamble, money-wise, business-wise. This is a giant business decision. And that's all it really comes down to. This is not, like, I get that there are some artists that'll be like, yeah, we wanted to re-record this because I had a different vision for it, and the record label twisted my arm. But 90% of this has to do with money and royalties and who owns what album. 90% of it.
And until we start listening to Billy Corgan and dismantling how record labels work, I mean, this is the easiest way for them to be able to try and go back and get what they're owed.
The problem is this is for all young bands out there, please heed my fucking words. Check your record contracts, because I bet you money with this going on right now, this is where record labels start making you sign contracts that you can't re-record.
Start wising up.
And that you can't use. This is where the record label is going to start getting scary, because now they're going to start owning intellectual property. They're not just going to own the band and the music and the album. They're going to start, when you write a song, they're going to say that song belongs to us. You cannot use it without our permission. And they're going to start writing intellectual property contracts, which is scary as hell. And if you do get one, do not sign that contract. It is not worth your time. Go be a starving artist and be independent. Do not be beholden to
You'd almost
somebody.
be better off just spending the extra money to have somebody go over that record or over that deal.
Right.
On like a lawyer standpoint, just to make sure.
If you see something in your contract that says something about intellectual property, you should run immediately.
You should immediately just throw that back and just say, after I sign this, or before I sign this, you can go fuck yourself.
Right. Anyway, let's get into albums. Do you want to hit yours
so,
first?
So here's these albums that came out on all these labels. So let's talk about those.
Well, I think Seether's independent right now, right?
I'm not sure, actually. I feel like they are. I feel like they're self-produced, but I don't know if they are self-releasing their music. Yeah, I could be wrong. I could just be stupid.
Hang on, I'm looking.
Which is a very fair bet. My IQ is either 130 or 3 on most days.
Oops, sorry. Not trying to play
well,
the music.
we can't do that. Keep it with under 10 seconds so we don't get sued.
Yeah.
We'll start with Frasier's first.
They don't have a record label right now. They are independent.
Well, good for them.
Right.
But also bad for them because that's my main bitch about their music right now.
Yeah,
so Frasier stares at it.
Yeah, they're on quote Fantasy Records, which I don't think is their own. Their own.
It's either that or it's just a distribution company that they're just putting the physical albums through.
Yeah. That's just what they're calling their record label, I'm sure. But so Seether put out their new album, The Surface Seems So Far. We kind of touched on it last week. I'm not going to take a whole lot of time on this. We did talk about this off podcast. There's kind of 3 different eras of Seether, just like with As It Lay Dying. You have the Disclaimer sessions, and what I would argue was also Karma and Effect was kind of one era. And then,
yeah, it's where they kind of lost. They were starting to move away from the raw aggression on Karma and Effect.
I still thought it had a lot of it. I thought Karma and Effect was even more raw and aggressive. But then you have Finding Beauty in Negative Spaces, Holding On to Strings Better Let the Fray, and Isolate and Medicate, which is kind of like their really commercial era, for sure.
Right.
Put them on the map big time, other than, Broken and Fine Again. And then you have, and Remedy, obviously. And then you have this newest version, which is Poison the Parish, I can't even say it, Pray for Peace, Be Ready for War in Latin. Somebody else say it. And then you have the newest album, The Surface Seems So Far, which definitely seems like not a return to form in terms of that rawness that they had, but it's aggressive. I'd even argue, I'm going to say this, it's definitely more progressive. Right. A lot more screaming. It's darker for sure. That's the thing. It's not as aggressive as the old stuff. It's definitely
But it's
darker.
lyrically darker.
It's way darker. It's more progressive, and it's heavier. Not a raw and aggression, but heavy, like physically heavy. So, my problem with this era is despite the really progressive tracks on the albums, it really sounds like the same song is kind of getting recycled. They're really well done songs, but like as I told Josh, I put this album on at work, had it on in the background, and after I realized what was about 5 or 6 songs, I kind of went, okay, I'm going to skip to a song I know I like, because they all kind of sounded the same and melded together. With that being said, I wasn't big on Judas Mind when it first came out. Not that I didn't like it, but I went back and listened to it and then really started digesting it. This album might take me a little bit of time to digest because of the fact that it's more progressive and darker. So it's not bad. I think I gave it like a 7 out of 10, like a solid C. But that's
where I'm at too. Like I was telling you before we started, like some of this stuff might appeal to like, the mid 2000s rock group of people that listen to like Godsmack, Shine Down, that kind of stuff. I mean, they have always fit into that area of music. But I was like, a lot of the later songs sound like later on this album, sound like they could have been from Faceless from Godsmack's album.
Right, or Awake. Yeah.
Yeah, like it did. That's why I only give this album like a C, like a 7 out of 10, is just because while there's really good tracks on this album, it kind of falls into that repetitive like 5-note guitar line throughout the whole thing, or like you have the hard heavy intro that immediately shifts into like a ballad and then tries to bounce between the two. It's a formula that Seether has used for a long time.
Right.
And they're good at it, but it definitely makes it a little bit boring to listen to a few times over.
I'm glad, and here's the thing. I'm glad they're in this spot because Sean has fought with the record companies uphill since the day one. He fought with them back when they were Sarin Gas. He fought with them on Disclaimer. He fought with them on everywhere. And the record company really has been in control of Seether for a long time, and they've let it be known. So I think this is Sean finally tapping that valve that he's needed to tap for a long time without any direction. But with that being said, maybe he needs a little bit of that coaching to a degree. Because, I mean, I think everybody's favorite Seether album is going to always be inevitably Finding Beauty in Negative Spaces.
He was also that everybody knows.
He was also going through a lot of the time, so he's probably at his creative, like, his mind was just flowing creatively. But yeah, I can't help but feel like almost, I know it's going to be sacrilegious, but I'd almost like them to see them tick back a little bit towards that commercial side, just a tad.
Right.
And or maybe not even, and people are like, you want the whole thing to sound commercial? No. Give me one or two of those again. Like one or two commercial-y type tunes again on the next album. But it's not a bad album. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it's going to grow on me for sure. But right now, it just isn't sticking as hard.
If
as
you
I
like
thought it would.
Seether, you're gonna like the album.
Yeah, if you've liked Poison the Parish and See Vacus Parabellum, you're gonna like this album. But
You're gonna summon something over there, buddy.
that's how you say "Pray for peace, be ready for war" in Latin.
Yeah,
In
but
nomine
I don't feel
Patria,
like
Filii et Spiritus Sancti, Amen.
I think we're kind of borderlining on Army of Darkness level.
Uh-huh. So anyway,
You said the words exactly right.
that's my
yeah.
opinion on that album. What do you got for yours?
Okay, this is an album that I've been sitting on for a while, just waiting for it to come out. But Servitude from the Black Dahlia Murder. Most people in the metal community obviously know that the Black Dahlia Murder's vocalist Trevor Strnad. Sorry, I can't pronounce his last name. I've heard it a million times. I still can't do it. But Trevor, unfortunately committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And what even hits even harder is when Servitude came out, I was going back and listening to all their albums before this came out. Going back and listening to the song Receipt off of Abysmal, one of the two, was all about suicide. And as soon as I remember that and looked at the lyrics, like, ouch, that fucking hurts. But, unfortunately, this did happen. And Black Dahlia Murder's future is kind of up in the air. I mean, honestly, would have been completely understandable to see them just kind of say, you know what, no. Trevor was such a big icon in the metal industry. And just for music in general, like him talking about, death metal music history on YouTube and going through old albums that nobody knows about. Like, dude was just a genuinely good human being.
Right.
And to have that taken away from Black Dahlia Murder was kind of one of those things, like, if they decide they don't want to do this anymore, I will completely support whatever they do. Members go on to do something else, whatever they want to do. But they decided to keep going and issue this new album, Servitude. And their vocalist now is Brian Eskbach, who is, if you're unaware, is the second founding member of Black Dahlia Murder along with Trevor. Brian is also the rhythm guitar player and does all the backup vocals and wrote the music and the lyrics with Trevor.
Right.
So the lyrical machine and the music machine is still spinning on Black Dahlia Murder.
The main songwriting components are still there.
Yes. And the previous rhythm guitar player, Ryan Knight, had left, I think in 2016. So they started toying with these ideas of having Brian take over on vocals, which he's the backing vocalist. Once you hear his vocals on this album, you can pick out where they are on the previous albums. And they decided to bring Ryan back as rhythm guitar player to fill in Brian's spot that he would be leaving in lieu of becoming the lead vocalist. I think this album it's a very smart way to continue on a band that was very perilous about whether they would continue or not.
Right.
Like Servitude, Brian's vocals, in my opinion, they sound raw, but they sound more kind of like what...
They don't sound very processed. They sound like, hey, we recorded it, we made it like sound good, and it sounds like it's almost sitting really high on top of the mix. Like it's pretty prominent. It like not karaoke level, but it's like, wow, that's in your face.
Well, their album previously, I think it's Verminous. I feel like Trevor's vocals kind of got lost in the mix of that album.
Mm-hmm.
And like Trevor's vocals were so iconic in Black Dahlia Murder that it's kind of hard to step up into that role. And Verminous and Nightbringers, the last two albums, his vocals did get kind of lost in the mix. So I can see them kind of saying like, hey, we noticed this. Let's try and do this now that we are having somebody else take over vocals and kind of make it, be its own entity. But I think honestly, the coolest part of Servitude is, so the first single that came out was a song called Aftermath.
Right.
And they announced that, the first single is going to be called Aftermath. It's coming out on this date, whatever. obviously everybody assumed, oh, they're going to be talking about, the aftermath of Trevor committing suicide and continuing on as a band. There is nothing in the concept of this album that talks about losing somebody.
Right.
And when Aftermath came out, the video came out, it's literally talking about the aftermath of a cataclysmic event and people having to do bad things to survive in a new post-apocalyptic world. And the video tied into it, but Brian had said, no, I came up with this idea of people basically having to cannibalize each other to stay alive after an undisclosed event happens.
Right.
Which you could argue yes and no. It kind of sounds like it could fit into that mix, but there's nothing on this album that's just like, our best friend is gone. Obviously, we're going to power through this and continue on. Like, this album fits so well in their discography.
Right.
None of these songs you could put on shuffle and pick out and be like, oh yeah, no, this is from this new era of Black Dahlia Murder. This is still Black Dahlia Murder. Like, right. Aftermath, the song Mammoth's Hand, like, Black Dahlia's always had solos, but like Mammoth's Hand has a sweet, beautiful solo towards the end of it that is new for Black Dahlia, but doesn't detract from what Black Dahlia is.
Right.
And it's still the same production team. It's still Ryan working on production, and Brandon Ellis, another member of the band, is working production. And Black Dahlia has always been one of those bands that, like, they're goofy on stage, they're goofy with how they promote their albums, and they haven't lost that part of their personality. So, like, I was talking to Andrew Shore from our interview episode last season about this album last Friday, and he's like, I hadn't listened to it. Jumps into it. He's like, dude, this album feels like they have not skipped a beat from their last albums.
Right.
And I think that's what I really appreciate about Servitude on that level, is that it doesn't feel out of place. It doesn't feel like they're trying all these new different things to really distinguish themselves as like the new version of it. It just shows that Black Dahlia Murder is still here and they're still going to kick ass. And like I said, my only downplay on this album was just the fact that Brian's vocals sound raw, but to me makes it sound more like that's what you're going to hear him doing live.
Right. Yep.
So you're still going to get that kind of raw gruffness in his vocals, but he also kind of has more of like a punk approach to his vocals. So it's not pretty. It's not meant to sound beautiful and pretty and highly processed. It's supposed to sound dirty and gross, and that's what you're going to get live.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, you pretty much, you kind of went over the entire thing beautifully, so I don't have anything to add to that. I'm in the same boat as you. Yeah, I got nothing else to say on top of that. I just agree with everything you said, and not because I like to, but because I have to.
You don't have to agree with me.
I do. On this one, I do. So, with that, guys, we are Dissonant Harmonics Podcast. We will catch you next time where we talk about that topic we talked about earlier. And yeah,
I already forgot.
I did too. We're in the middle. We are, all the other juices are going to Black Dahlia Murder. Anyway, we'll catch you later. I have been Frasier.
And for $1, I'll still be Josh.
Catch you later, guys.
Goodbye, everybody.